Here we go. On again, it is Wednesday evening, of course, a beautiful day in the Jewel. Um, I'm joined by my distinguished fellow panelists, and they keep on to try to tell me, oh, gee, Mike, my mother only guess who da no guess. Joe is now a regular panelist, and we love that. I mean, quite an astute mind, a seasoned veteran, a man that's been in government, out of government, in business, out of business. Uh, the man of silicon. When you talk about silicon, the man of silicon, the man, you tell me about the put the Lord's Prayer on the pin head, but now they put the whole Bible on the pin head. I can't find a pin now. Kind of when I don't know if that when the pin that pin bend or when the story end. Yeah, remember when we used to deal with that, right? That's things. Joe, good evening. Welcome
Good
again.
evening. Good evening, Chairman, and nice to be here with you all again.
All right. I believe that the other panelists will join us. Yeah, of course, we have a regular four, the usual suspects, of course, and George Myvitt and Gregory Morrison. These guys normally drop in along the show as they can. We try to start 7 o'clock. Sometimes we are a little delayed, and we're proud that people are able to tune in to us. And also remember, you can catch us at any time on YouTube at Beliztics recordings, Belizean recording, and of course on CY's Facebook page, Clinton Young. And if you go on any of our pages, also you most likely will buck up on it. And Joe, since me and that together, there are first of all, make we talk about something off the cuff before we get into things. How about that major settlement of that lawsuit? Do you see that maybe, and we've seen it, in fact, things like that happen in Belize because remember, I think who was it? Castro had to pay some money. Somebody had to pay some money, defamation suits. But that one big one, what you make of it, and how does that affect? Does it set a precedent? You think that people are going to be more careful about what they say?
In this particular case, which I have been following quite closely, it's not likely based on the guy Murdoch himself, no, Rupert. He has a history of doing these things, and then he settled because he's a multi-billionaire. But what it did do indeed was to bring to the notice of what should be the traditional template of the media in giving out honest information. And it is simply because the information that was given out was proven already to be untrue. So the trial was only to make a determination as to whether it was done with malice or with the intent to damage. They realize, it seems, from what you're listening to now from the various legal experts, is that normally, historically, it's difficult to win a defamation suit against the media, given the freedom of speech and of the American society in terms of the media. But this was one case where they believed that there was a strong case against Fox News.
But Joe does not have implications for Donald Trump even on his way forward because all that wrong information was in his favor and in support of his agenda. I remember the whole January 6th affair and a lot of the stuff that was being broadcast on Fox News. Evidently, much of it was in error. And in fact, the fact checkers at that time were already finding things. And I imagine that is what you're suggesting is the evidence that existed leading up to this trial. Uh,
What is also, and you're making a very salient point there, I must say, because if you look at what has been happening when Donald Trump left office and was trying to change the result of the election, most of the people who had followed him have already paid the price through the courts.
right. Some people got convicted.
Many
Yeah.
of them. No, the time is near now when it will be his turn.
Do you foresee that?
Yeah, what is being said is that whereas this may be perceived to be not a very strong case, the other three, in particularly coming out of the January 6th, the classified information, and the third one was the one with the classified information, yes, that those were the stronger cases.
Yeah.
So it looked like now it is coming to be his turn. But
Let
many
me
paid the price for following him.
let me interrupt and introduce our other panelists, and we have a full house. I like to see the four you guys up. Only one good-looking fellow, but you guys doing all right. Gregory, welcome to the show,
Good evening. Good evening.
and of course the pride of Georgeville, the West is best. George Mivett. Good evening, sir.
Don't
Yeah,
say.
yeah. All right, yeah, man.
Good
Women,
evening, Mr. Chairman. Good evening, gentlemen. Good evening, viewers.
good, a pleasure to have you guys in the house, present and accounted for. And Joe and I were shooting the breeze here, but we're going to talk about the case that was settled out of court in the U.S. about against Fox,
Yeah.
and we figured
And
that was kind of like it as something we might put Donald Trump a bit more against the ropes. And do you think it'll have any effect on his first of all, his chances of running again and becoming president, and his popularity, because I believe there are two different aspects there, no? Two
yeah.
different things.
I think generally it will make the media a little more shy of being complicit with him in following through with all that he says. I think they'll try and break it a little bit more clearer when they're just rambling on and things are not true. So I think it will put some damper on that, but I don't think it will break what Fox News does. I wanted to keep to listen at them to them. The last few days, but I've been busy with work and haven't had a chance to see if there have been
Yeah.
any marked change in how they say anything or do anything. But I'm sure instructions is going to be coming down because nobody likes to lose $790 million. So
Even if
um,
you got 1 billion odds, yeah, right.
yes, yes.
Uh,
Even if you got that, and not, what it does shows that they could be sued, and it does mean that you're exposed. So I think um, it is going to tamper some of the far-reaching claims and stuff, and the way the media act in general. But we also had something in the news, and I know George will join in. But the guy that exposed all those, the airman that exposed all those
oh, it's leaked
those
documents.
those leaked documents. So anyway, I'll
Yeah.
let George
But,
jump
but
in.
but let's go back to that first before you do. It seems an indictment against the media on a whole. But
Yeah.
is Fox an acknowledged media, I mean, propaganda tool for the Republican? I mean,
Well, they,
it's
they all are. I
recognized
mean,
as
I mean,
such.
we have the same thing throughout, right? They always have the alignment and the sponsorship of media, whether you're in Belize
But
or you're in
is
the
it
United
fair? Is
States,
it
right?
fair to the people, though? Really, is it fair to the
Well,
listening, the
the,
public out there?
the listeners are getting exactly what they wanted. They're
You
getting
think?
exactly what they want from Fox. That's what I believe. The
Well,
Fox channels its news to please that audience, whether it's doing a disservice to that audience by just carrying and pumping stuff that they themselves know to be untrue is a different situation. That's something their audience need to hold them accountable for. But the audience at this point seems to be the Fox seem to be rhyming what they want to hear, and so they are quite pleased with the news. Fox was more concerned about upsetting its sponsor base and its audience in why they channeled. If you look at some of the things that Tucker Carlson had said about Donald Trump and some of his concerns, and even Sean Hannity, it clearly shows that they were at odds at times with what they were perceived to feel that they must say when they had some other concerns that it may not be the truth or the whole truth in some regards.
Judge, should they be given what they want, like Gregory is suggesting? The media, the media, they get in when they want, or should there be more consideration towards truth and make and being given what they should give, then, which is that if you're going to put yourself up as the best news station anywhere, you would think that they would be giving you at least the best news, no? What do you think? How you see it? And one more question: do
Well,
you
I
believe
think,
we? Go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead.
yeah. I believe that anybody who believes that there's a free and independent media in these days would be deluded. I believe that the media in Belize, the media in America, and perhaps elsewhere on the planet for sure, ideological in scope. Fox is really pro-conservative, pro-Republican, and pro-Trump. And I believe that they have done the mathematics of the cost and benefit, and they realize that there are two courts to be considered. There's a court of public opinion, and then there's a court of jurisprudence. And I believe that they realize that if you have a long drawn out battle in the court of jurisprudence, it would bring out certain aspects, such as the dirty linen of Donald Trump and really the Republicans, that they have decided, you know what, it's better for us to cut our
Yes.
losses by way
Yes.
of almost $800 million and carry on with the business of getting reelected, getting Donald Trump reelected. That's the big picture that I see. For them, for these guys who play for keeps, $800 million is pittance, because at the end of the day, they are looking at affecting public policy which would get them what they want, which is the two percenters basically want to rule the world, at least American world. So from that standpoint, I do not find the decision to sort of, not go through the courts as being outside of the ordinary. I would expect nothing less.
All right. Deluded as we might be, though, Joe. Tell me something, because should government and we want also dedicate and part of the show every week to failures of government and some of the recommendations that we can make towards maybe setting us on a better path. But should government have a role, Joe, in demanding and even holding them their feet to the fire, making sure that they don't, and this might be a part of what they're doing here with this lawsuit, but could they do more and insist that they tell the truth? They do have fact checkers, don't they?
I think in the case of Fox News, it is the most popular cable television in the United States.
Foxes,
Yeah,
Yeah,
you
it is.
think?
Yeah, it
it
is.
is. It is. They have the
Now,
largest viewership at prime time.
Above CNN?
that's right.
Yes.
All
Yes.
of
I
them.
Way
didn't
above. Way
I didn't know
above.
that. I didn't know that. Yeah.
Rupert Murdoch begins in he was operating in Australia. He was operating in Britain, and he's
Hmm.
operating now in the United States.
Hmm.
Rupert Murdoch, by the culture that he instilled with Fox, had moved away from the traditional template of a media house, giving honest information to the public. Rupert Murdoch look at it more as a business, meaning this one shook him up, of course. It's not the first time he paid damages. He have been paying 70 million here, 20 million here, 30 million there.
Hmm.
But he was looking at the cost benefit of it. Being the most popular is because he was pandering to the audience, to the listeners, because they like what he was giving. They really enjoyed what they were doing, giving untruths and being so sleazy at times. So they enjoyed that, and he made money from that. So if he could give you 20 million settlement and 70 million settlement, when he's making so much as being the most popular, and what made him the most popular is a reflection again of the American people. But
Indictment on their intelligence, Joe.
it is. But the point to be made is this: whereas that 787 million, we maybe only change the strategy to make sure that they do not go to that extent to wake up them. But he will not
Hmm.
stop it,
Yeah.
because
He's not.
that is the new template for them. It's about
Yeah.
the money. It's
But
not
but
about giving honest information.
I can't believe that so many people are so dumb. I mean, have we been dumbed down to that point
Well,
that you're seeing in front of you evidence that these people are lying to you? They admit to it, and you
well,
still decide this is what I want to listen to? Go ahead, Judge.
Well, the culture has changed. Um, G. Mike and gentlemen, Donald Trump is one of those perhaps one of those personalities in history that is a change maker. And whether you like him or not, he has made the truth not as potent as it could be. He has basically said in his ethos, the unwritten script is that the means justify the end. The means of understanding that there's a long game, and that long game is to acquire and to sustain political power obviates any relevance to the truth. People know that what is being said is not necessarily the truth, but it's really their sinner, it's their horse in the race that is basically saying what he needs to say to the base. It is their horse that is basically saying what could get him over the finish line. So, to me, the conversation, in as far as the conservatives, at least on the Republican side, because not all conservatives are Republican, but the Republican conservatives are basically saying, the truth has its value, but not in relation to our game plan. Our game plan is to reacquire political power on Capitol Hill. And we have the bodies, we have the numbers to basically do this. Why am I saying this? Everybody know that Donald Trump is really a misogynist. Donald Trump is a liar. But whenever you look at the polls on the Republican side, there's nobody that can stand up to Donald Trump. As we speak, going into the 2024 election, I don't know that the Democrats are saying anything that can garner the sort of energies that Donald Trump does provide for his base. So I don't see anything that would thwart the Republican right from doing what it has done, which is appeal to the base, and hopefully you'll appeal to those who are not committed to either side.
But George, that's not saying so much about how good Donald Trump is, but about how bad the rest is. The audience out there, the base that you're talking about, they have no kind of rationale, no reasoning ability.
But,
They are really not intelligent enough to say, hold it a minute, because
but,
yes, this might be what we want. He is our horse in the race, but at the end of the day, is he the best thing for our country? Because he's very divisive. We know
but,
that. Apart from the things that you
but,
mentioned, yeah.
well, he's very divisive, um, um, Mr. Chairman. But remember, he's basically saying what his base is willing to accept, and not only willing to accept, but they are willing to accept it not on the basis of morality, but they are actually willing to accept it on the basis of what can get them over the hump. Remember when Donald Trump won, what it was 6 years ago, people are kind of writing Donald Trump off.
I had.
And then people are realizing, you know what, there's a base of 70 million people, 70 plus
Mhm,
million people that
mhm.
are willing to go for him, irrespective and despite all the flaws that are evident. This man is disturbed mentally. This man will do whatever it takes to basically get his way. I think that people are what people are losing is that there's a class war at play here. It's the working class and the poor versus the two percenters. And the two percenters, whom are the investor class in the United States, realize that if you have hope, you can affect the game in such a way that you will win. That
Let
strategy
me
has been tried before, and they are
let
sticking
me
to their gun.
let me ask a loaded question here. Because this 2% versus the rest that you're suggesting, could the frustration with such a situation and system be the consequence that comes from mass shootings and people being so uh, um, frustrated and desperate that they want to make a point and do it at the peril of others? Is there any connection?
I think I think that the frustration and stuff
What,
comes
what,
from Americans when I say Americans, I'm speaking more of the white Americans, realizing that that minority is in some ways because of immigration policies um, are going to be challenging their majority status in terms of numbers.
But
And
Gregory, we've been watching White and White, and in fact, just only last
no,
week we
no, no, I'll
saw.
get to that. I'll get to that. I'll get to that.
Okay,
The-
go ahead.
and so what has happened is that a class of people, very poor people, has joined on to the bandwagon that somehow these people are affecting our mobility and our comfort. And so those people are behaving as if though they are in the majority class. They're in the majority because they are white in that so that from that perspective. But in terms of economic, they're as poor as many other people within the society. They are just as disenfranchised in terms of economic power, but they are still committed to moving in that direction because they believe that in somehow it is the other people that are coming that's taking away from them why their situation is such. So that's where Donald Trump has tapped in, and I don't think he's crazy, and I think he's brilliant in many regards, maybe in a very um, um, strange way, but he knows what he's doing, and he's been doing it from for a very long time, not just now, but probably through his entire career, manipulating media and manipulating. I mean, look at what has happened for the since Donald Trump walked down those stairs. Every single day, Donald Trump has been in the news, good, bad, or indifferent. And to him, it doesn't make much of a difference. I'm sure he'd like to be painted as good and the savior and all that. But I think just talking about him is enough for him in some regards.
And they did it even when he was out. But the question is, this situation is a
Well,
gorilla in the living room. This situation with the mass shootings that we are seeing on a regular basis, does this have something to do with Donald Trump's philosophy and what he's
Well,
doing?
it only has to do in that he supports gun rights. He supports the people that wants and I support people that want to have guns. So I don't have a problem with that. I believe you could told you guys this before many times that I believe you could have whatever gun you want to buy, but I do believe that there should be some type of qualifications for it, that you're not a convict, that you're or you have resolved those type of issues,
Yeah, so you're
and
going.
that you're not mentally unfit, and that and you're of proper age to have that kind of responsibility. But I don't have any problem with people owning
I
whatever gun they want to have.
I hear you, and I'm wondering
well,
what's your rationale for owning these big guns. Go ahead, Georgia. We're not going that. He doesn't have to answer
well,
that.
no, but it's a very valid point you're raising there, Mr. Chairman. What is the rationale? Remember, there's something bigger than Donald Trump, and it's called the conservative movement. And so the gun lobby, the NRA et al., um, these guys are playing the role, and they're basically saying that they want to take away your guns from you. That's an American value. It's un-American to want to take away your gun. The two things that they believe is the gun and the Bible. And so anything that would affect those, Donald Trump and his people are playing that to the maximum. So they realized, you know what? Um, in a situation where there's instability, because if you have these shootings and historically you've had them, but they seem to have been at their worst at this point in time. If you have instability, you know what people look for? They look for strong leadership. Have instability, they look for someone who can lead. I said
We'll lose you.
looking
We'll
for
lose you.
scapegoats.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
Yeah,
And
go ahead. We got your back. Go ahead. No, we
the
don't.
Mexicans don't
I don't know. You have to pay the
over the
internet bill,
border.
Judge.
They're the guys that want to harm you. It's not the NRA guys that are providing all the guns that you do not need. See, so I think that you have to look in. Are you guys hearing me?
No.
Off and on. Very,
But
very.
Mr.
Yeah, you. I don't know the son, and now you're gone all together. But are you hearing
Hello.
us? Can you hear me? You're not hearing me either, huh? I no, we're
All right.
losing you,
I
Judge.
probably need to switch to my phone.
All right. Yeah, because we're not.
Yeah,
We're not.
I'll try
We're
and
not.
switch to my phone, or
All
I'll get
right.
my technician to come by.
All right.
Maro,
Joe. Joe.
Yeah,
Joe.
I'd
Maro.
like to, sorry, yeah, I'd like to comment on the matter of the gun.
Uh-huh.
The Constitution of the United States, and I hope I'm right here, give the
Maro.
Americans the right to bear arms.
Right.
Yes.
Now, the question is it supposed to be bearing arms in an uncircumscribed way? Meaning, if you take arms in the literal and general meaning, it means you have the right to even own one tank or armored tank. What the people in America are saying, and I think they are in the majority, is that of course you have the right to bear arms, but we will restrict the extent to which the type of arms you will bear. Secondly, we will have the background check. Because why is it that you want these assault weapons? Why should you have the right to be bearing arms, meaning unlimited definition of arms? So I think what the others are saying is that yes, we have the right to bear arms. And I believe in that right. But then we were going to restrict the amount of the type of arms you will bear, and we want to have a background check so that it will be sold to people who we believe are responsible enough to bear the arm in their self defense.
But and a good point. Because Gregory, how would you respond to that? You're saying they should own anything they want. Does that include like a tank if they want to own a tank, one bazooka if they want to own a
Well,
bazooka?
well,
Would
I
you?
wouldn't. No, I wouldn't think of a tank or a bazooka necessarily, but I would think of any other type of gun that people
Yeah,
want
yeah.
to
You
go
mean
out.
the automatic
Yeah,
weapons and the high powered weapons? You
yeah,
think they
yeah.
ought to give me a reason, Gregory, why you think
I
they
don't have a
should be
reason
allowed?
other than if you
Eh,
want
eh,
it and you're gonna act responsible with it, nobody's gonna get
But
hurt
how
with
do
it.
you know? Obviously, they are not acting responsible with it, Gregory.
But then that's different. Then you deal with that as a situation. But I do, as Joe Cowie said,
Uh,
agree that there should be qualification for it. You should be of the proper age. You
right.
should you should have. I believe something that most people probably don't believe. Believe that there should be ongoing qualification for it. Like every 5 years, you fill out some type of um, competency thing
In case you
that
get
you still.
crazy during that time.
Yeah,
Yeah,
something
yeah.
like that, and so forth. But I do believe that you have the right to bear arm and to have an automatic weapon if you so choose, even
But
if it could take
but but
20
but, but
people or 30 people down in a second.
Can
yeah,
I ask
but
a
all right.
question? Sorry, can I ask
But
a
but
question?
but 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 the question, the reason I remember, part of the American Constitution and part of the American idea of bearing arm is also so that the people can protect themselves from a tyrannous government.
Hold on a second. You had a Donald Trump government. Did you want to see the people running into that building on January 6th with high-powered weapons? Is that because
No,
that
no,
is
no.
in your that's
Well,
your no? But by
well,
your
no,
rationale,
no,
that
no.
is what it was for. It
Well,
was
well, well. The people at that end believe that the government was acting in some type of way that violates their constitutional right.
yes,
Well,
yes.
then that's where you have civil war, and that's how you settle these kind of things. No, no,
Gregory,
no, 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 no. Come on, come on. We have civil war when people, when a portion of the people, and it doesn't
right?
take a lot. It takes 20% or so to
And you got
create that
nearly
type.
half right now, and that's unhappy.
Yeah.
Nearly half.
Well, yeah, but not to the level of that type of violence, right?
But it's to the point where they think they're not getting the representative they deserve. That's what it's all about. That's what
Maro, go ahead
But
with this.
Sorry.
I,
I'm hearing you now, George.
well,
Switch.
no, I'm not
Yeah.
switching. I try to get my technician to come help
I
me.
hear you good now. What are the
Madam,
problem? What you do? You change your seat. You turn around the next way.
no, I got my technician to try sort this out. How do I
Yeah.
close?
Mr.
How do I
Chairman,
close
sorry.
this?
Don't you think that the thing
Yeah,
is centered around
I'm trying to get off of
the
this.
interpretation and what was meant by the forefathers when they gave the right to Americans to bear arms? The interpretation given by so many good experts too in the
I know.
country
And listen, I try
is that
close
the
it.
right to bear arms was to be for defensive purpose, not offensive.
No, that's not true.
I
That's
know.
not
No,
true.
no. It was to protect themselves
To
against a
bring down the
government that
government
was.
if you had to. If you
Yeah,
to
yeah, exactly,
Yeah,
exactly.
to bring down the government if you had to.
Why
Yeah.
Yeah,
would why
if a
would you
government was
believe
acting.
why
Last 2 weeks
do you
I was
believe
not able
that
to
those
talk.
who are advocating
I don't know exactly anything for
restricting the type of arms you will bear? If it
But
was if it was to be offensive, then to me the scope for the type of arms should be broadened. Because then, if
But
it is to
who
be,
but
is
it
state
is.
no, 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 no.
legislation
you will
that
be
limits the type of arms?
limited to the type of arms you will be able to bear.
Right.
Yeah,
So you
So
yeah.
cannot say that it was to be offensive.
But nobody limits the type of arms except state government. Nobody limits the type of arms. The Fed may do it,
Well,
and the state, because people. But the truth is, it's to bring down a tyrannous government. The idea from the founding fathers was to deal with any government that did not follow through with the objective and wishes. And at times we could have those government
but
if we
Gregory,
had.
that's what I'm saying. Many people thought we had that government in Donald Trump. Did you want to see us then bring him down with the use of those guns?
I don't think Donald Trump in his governance was acting tyrannous in such a manner.
Okay,
I
okay,
don't I don't think so. I don't think so.
okay.
I'll say he was not kind. He was not racially sensitive, and so forth. But to me, we would not have had the Ukraine war if Donald Trump was in power. We would not have had NATO expanding into
it's a Maro
Russian
this way.
sphere of
I don't know if that our
influence.
signal.
Uh,
Yeah,
if 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 we had Donald Trump as president, many of those things we have to look at things in its full.
All right. Mostly speculation there because we don't know.
Well,
Uh,
we don't know, but we
George,
could we could see we could see we could see
well,
that that was not the path that things
it's
were going.
okay. Yeah, George, can we go try it again, George?
it's
Let me see how
interesting.
good your technician.
It's
Yeah.
are you hearing me, Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Yeah.
Are
Yes,
you
yes,
hearing me?
yes. Yes.
All right.
Yes.
Interesting. Mr. Morrison has basically said that he doesn't see Donald Trump as somebody who would who as in a sense would not bring down the government after the results of the
No,
election.
that's not what I said. That's not
Yeah.
There
what
was
I
a
said.
mark at the White
No, he didn't say that.
House,
He didn't say
not
that.
on the
He
White
didn't say
House,
that.
on the Capitol.
He didn't say that.
Um,
No, I
well,
agree.
That's
what
not
I
what I
gather
said.
from what you're saying is that Donald Trump is not the, what he said. He didn't say that. What I gather is that Donald Trump is not the arch rival that will affect in a significant way the collapse of the government. And if he didn't say that, that is what I got from it. So I would have to apologize if that is not a part of what he meant. But
I
my
didn't get
take of
that.
it is that
I
Yeah.
didn't
what
get
is
that.
it that would get Mr. Morrison? Yeah, what is it that would get Mr. Morrison to a place where he realizes a crazed mob stop at nothing to end a legally constituted process that result in an outcome that is not favorable to a Donald Trump? What is it? The guys basically descended on the Capitol and basically said we will lynch the vice president because he's willing to endorse an incoming. I am just trying to find out where the boundaries are that put Mr. Morrison in a position to say, you know what, Donald Trump is bad news, and there's no boundary to that which he will not go. That's what I'm trying to understand.
Yeah.
Greg, I don't
Uh,
hear you
Yeah,
Yeah, don't
saying
bump this for Donald.
that Donald Trump is good news. He's saying you did
exactly.
say it's bad news, but I don't hear you saying good news. Is that it? You
That's
and
correct. That's
I've said
correct.
this before myself, George, that you can't throw the baby out with the bath water. And there are lots of people. I like what Bill Maher said. You can't if you can hate Donald Trump, but you can't hate America if you want to be an American, and it makes sense. But there's some things, there might be some things that Donald Trump is saying, or some things about Donald Trump that you can still like without supporting Donald Trump all the way. And I think because yes, he did not start any wars. Um, he was making overtures to Russia, and he did say he thinks it's a good thing for us to talk to Russia. And it might
Yes.
have been, maybe it could have, it could have prevented the Ukraine situation.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. The
if
Ukraine situation only went on because we keep pushing to have Ukraine join NATO. That
Yes,
that
I believe
that
that.
that
I
that
believe
that
that.
that,
Yeah,
that was a big issue. America doesn't want Cuba to have nuclear weapons and target right on its doorstep, and Ukraine is a border with America
yeah, yeah.
with Russia. So
And they did
so
basically the same thing, only they did not succeed with the Bay of Pigs. So they would
exactly.
have because they trained those troops and sent them in there in basically the same way, but they didn't weren't as
Yeah.
aggressive, right?
Yeah.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
Yeah. Can I come back to
Gradually back off.
sorry,
Yeah.
uh,
Mr. Morrison? I agree when he said that if Donald Trump was there, there would have not have been this invasion of Ukraine by Russia. And I believe that. I believe it. But my reason for believing that is simply because Donald Trump, Putin, and the Chinese leader are of the same mindset. They believe in autocratic type government. And that's the mindset of Donald Trump. And it is for that reason I believe he would have avoided those wars because of his affinity to these type of people.
Joe,
I think that that is one that might be one, but I think more importantly, he wouldn't have allowed Ukraine to join NATO, which is what was the main concern for the Russian invasion. That
Well,
that that
that sorry, go ahead because I would really like to hear that opinion that we talk about it a little more.
okay.
But sorry to interrupt you.
No, no problem. I believe that generally the push of what happened is I don't want to step out too far, but I believe that generally the Biden administration saw this build up for 4 or 5 months, and they egged on Ukraine and
yeah,
stuff,
yeah.
and that part of this is to really have tested the Russia and to see what they would have done, and that they are doing this in proxy. And part, if you listen to some of the comments from some of the generals within, still with, well, not within, but recently leaving the military, they want to see this because they hope that somehow what's happening will weaken the Russia for the next 25 years and have America to have a jump on them in technology and stuff. So there's a lot of things going on why this war was allowed to happen, and thinking that I think they got kind of surprised that Ukraine is still holding on. But
Gregory, Gregory,
mhm.
do you believe that there's anything in those leaked documents that was revealing some of the things that they don't want to release?
Nope,
Um,
nope,
uh, you
nope.
don't think so?
I believe whatever is in those leaked documents, and I don't have a problem with leaked documents. I have a problem with leakers, but I don't have a problem with leaked documents. That may sound kind of split. I believe that the people, if they get to know what the government is doing, they have a right to know. They're paying every penny for whatever the government is doing.
All right, but
I
you don't want anybody to leak it. You want it to
that's
be.
the
You don't mind it being leaked, but you don't want nobody to leak it.
I don't like, yeah, I don't like
So
leakers.
you want the government themselves to maybe stop classifying so many documents at the 50 million a year,
Yeah, yeah,
50
yeah, yeah,
million
yeah, yeah,
documents a year, and
yeah,
once they're classified, they don't lose that label.
yeah.
25 years.
Unless a president goes back and declassify it or something
But
like
then
that.
even the president has to be careful how he handles them because look at the ones they found
Yeah,
with Biden and
yeah,
Trump
yeah.
and
Trump
Spence.
and Spence
So
and
the one interesting thing, but what I mean, why 1.3 million people have security clearance. So there are a lot of people, and of course there are levels of it, of course.
Yes,
But
yes,
but,
yes.
but
Yeah,
But,
why so many secrets?
yeah.
Is
well,
Well,
not is not a part outside of the whole uh, um the philosophy of democracy, where the people are the government indeed,
well,
and
and that's why I don't have a problem with documents that are leaked once it's leaked. That I do have a problem. I want to know exactly what the government is doing to the
but you
extent, and
want
like
people
you
to be
said,
loyal to a cause if they're signed up for that cause.
that's
because
I
correct. That's
I
correct.
couldn't understand
if
that.
you
Yeah,
allow me to come in, because I feel somewhat diametrically opposed to this Morrison on 2 points.
uh-huh.
One,
Okay.
I believe that the state should be allowed to have classified documents. The issue we could determine to what extent should we allow the state to have classified documents. What? Don't tell me that you would want documents held by the state and to be revealed where spies, American spies or Russian spies, are spying on the other side, and you will leak that out. No, no, man.
Yeah.
Countries are spying on each other, and
But
if
there
you
are
Yeah.
certain, yeah, I think we
No,
all agree.
I didn't say that. I
Yeah,
didn't
yeah,
say that
yeah,
that I
yeah.
don't think states should have classified documents. I
all
said
right, fine. That's why I wanted to get it clear. No, you are telling me you're not opposed to the state having classified documents.
no. I'm not opposed to state. No, I believe that
But
states should
when you
have
said
secrets.
that
Should
you were
states
not,
do
that you were that you are opposed to leakers, but not is what is leaked, and it
That's
seems to
correct.
me it was a
Because once it's leaked,
because
it
if you go
exposes what
to
our government is doing, and I
yes,
like to know what our government is doing in secret.
yes, but to me, if you
Mhm.
say that you would like information to be leaked because the government may be doing things in secret, which by
Yes.
right the public should have a right to know.
Yes.
To me, it comes back to one simple issue.
Uh-huh.
If you elect the people to govern, obviously you would expect that they will use their best discretion to know that there are certain information that should not be given to the public because it will be not in the best interest of the country, the nation state. So that one I think we can agree on that yes, there must be need for classified documents, but you need to be careful to what extent you will classify.
Well, it's also
Yes,
like the
that,
guns, no? I think
but
that the
it's
same
not
thing with
that,
gun.
But see,
and
there are many type of secrets that a state holds, and some of them, like you said, I don't want to know where America have spies and things like that.
that's right.
But
So that's why I'm
I do want to know what America is doing in interfering in the affairs of other countries and sabotaging other countries, or how America is acting in ways that is disruptive to the lives of American living here, because they do things overtly that are homebound and outbound. You see what I'm saying?
yeah, that's what I'm saying.
These behaviors act in every way, and so I want to know what they're doing. If somebody choose to let me know what they're doing, I'm going to listen and read and query the government on those issues when I think they are going wrong.
Right, the only qualification I would ask to make here before I go to the next point is that we are not opposed to the state having classified documents where I believe it's in the best interest of the nation state. Fine. So we agree on that.
We agree on that.
No,
But
the
but
next
but let me
point,
let me just qualify that, because when you get this cabal of people and thinking they know everything about your best interests, there lies some danger. You agree on that?
I will agree, but let's come back to an important point.
Okay.
Whenever you are appointing or electing, you're appointing a CEO. You appoint the CEO on the assumption that he will be honest and that he will carry out his job based on the interview you had with him. No,
Yes.
we go to the polls and we elect people to govern the country for us. We go on the assumption that they are qualified to do it. But what you must have in place is what you call the internal controls. That if
Hmm.
that person, after having elected him or appointed him, and the assumption that he met the qualifications, if he should default, there must be internal control in place to be able to find out what went wrong and address it. So that I think we can agree on because those are things that are important for us to agree on.
But that might
Yes,
be part of
yes.
the bigger part of the problem, because the people you have in place to hold them accountable are beholden to them. So they will not do that. And you're
I
saying you can't elect a person and give him unfettered access
No,
to
no,
do what
no.
he want to do.
That's what I'm saying to you, man. I
And,
think
and,
there is something
and
yeah,
important to
but,
yeah.
but
understand.
the checks and balance that needs to be put in place, I think, is very important.
Yeah,
Yes,
that's a theoretical part of it, is that how do you control those people once they're elected? How do you control the checks and balance in the system? And that's where our failure in the American system and in the Belize system.
But in particular, the belief system, because
I was going to say yes,
people that
yes.
you will depend upon to hold them are appointed by they themselves.
Yeah,
This
but Mr.
but
Chairman,
America showed us first class where people were supposed to hold the presidency, the last presidency, in account, and they did not. The attorney general did not. There were many failures that some of the generals did not. Some of the CIA did not hold. They made gross mistakes. So it tells you that the influence of an individual or in the influence of some ideas that one individual may carry could impact a large majority of how people behaves, and it shows that Belize is not immune to it, and neither is America. So it's a human condition.
it is the imperfection of human beings. But let me again, because I think this is the area where I can maybe speak with some expertise, since that is what I do. Internal controls in private sector and in government is extremely important. It's about oversight. It's about checks and balances. Now, we don't want to go too far ahead of ourselves because we have another thing that certainly we'll be talking about, I hope, down the road sometime in the future. But if you look at all the internal controls set up in the case of Belize, known to the public, because they are codified into laws, we know that they violated the internal controls. And the citizen to whom these people are to be accountable decide not to take any action. So to me, you are getting the kind of government you deserve. No, that's what happens.
We always do. We always do.
No, we should not always be like that.
No, I'm saying in the regards you always get the government you deserve, because
Oh yeah, yeah.
if you are a democracy,
all
there are
right, and
means, there are
yes,
mechanism to remove that government. If you are functioning democracy,
It,
sometimes you call yourself democracy and you're not a democracy because
yeah,
of many restraints.
I agree with you 100%. It's what you call the veneer of democracy. If
Right.
you are telling me that democracy inherently means participatory, but you only want to participate by going to the polls 5 minutes and vote, and that's the end,
Yeah. Yeah.
then to me that is not democracy. But who fails? The
Yeah.
democracy is failing not just because of the elected, but because of the electors,
Yeah.
because of not participating. So I
Right.
think that issue there with the terms of holding government accountable, who must hold them accountable? We, the citizens. And if we fail to do it, we can't be sitting back and lamenting and moaning
but
about
are we?
Hmm.
that.
I think the question has to be asked: are we really able? Because of a difficult situation. Now, you were talking about the people of China, Russia, and America, who seems to want to gravitate towards autocracy and a person in charge. And way back, the ancient philosophers were saying that the best system of government is a benevolent dictator. But where you gonna?
Most people believe that.
But
Most
where
people
you
and
gonna? Where
most
you?
societies were ruled like that. And democracy, as we are experiencing it in America, is a new experiment. It's
And it's a
only
sham, though. It has failed miserably,
Well,
apparently.
no, it hasn't. It has provided the greatest level of freedom to the
But
most people.
freedom. Maybe it's not freedom that we need.
N-
Maybe it's common sense.
Well, that's a different
Maybe we
thing.
need to be freed
But you
from
have,
this freedom.
but well, then you sounding like that totalitarian wannabe kind of
Exactly.
Why? I
in that regard.
you
But
can
But
if
Mr.
you paint
Chairman,
it as such.
you have a choice.
mm,
You want an autocratic government, or you want a government where the people elect who are to govern them? Which one would you prefer?
Can we have something that works for the interests of the
but
majority of
see,
people?
All right,
And,
which
but
one you believe is having the better chance of working?
why both of them can work
Therefore,
if you
that's
have the
true.
right
That's
people in
true.
place.
if
That's
both of
true.
them can work,
Yeah.
the point is that the Belizean people in 1981 choose democracy, meaning they will go to the polls to elect their leaders. Now, once we made that decision, then we should have made sure that the people participate as the way
Yeah.
they should. But
Yeah.
that's another discussion. Can I
Yes.
then come back to the second point that Mr. Morrison made regarding the issue with, it's not the topic, but he mentioned in passing that Russia was provoked by Ukraine making overtures to become a member of NATO. I don't fully agree 100% for the reason
Mhm.
that the NATO allies themselves were not too committed. They were not pushing for
Sure.
Ukraine to join.
Sure. You really believe that?
I'm not telling you I believe it, it's a fact.
That's not a fact.
That
That is not a
that is a
fact.
fact. No,
It,
that is a fact. They
That
did not want.
the others did not want them to join.
they were
Yeah.
cautioning
Yeah.
them to
Who
hold,
exactly wanted them to join?
hold on, like I finish. Sorry to tell you, Mr. Chairman. The reason why, what they wanted, what, and that is why I'm saying we need to do some fact checks indeed. Because we may say something, and if I say something and you find that, boy, that is not true, I want you to tell me that what
Mhm.
you are saying isn't true because we are misleading each other.
Yeah.
When I say something is a fact, I have to be able to back it up. Otherwise, I would be untruthful to you all. So I
Yeah.
am saying to you that what happened at the time, I was following this story. We followed it. The world can follow it. They were saying to the Ukraine, you may have interest, but we will not encourage you become a partner right now in NATO. For the very reason that the sphere of influence will become provoking Russia. What they wanted to for Ukraine to join the European Union. And that is where I think, but
Yeah,
to be
but normally,
But also Russia did not want them to join the European Union because they saw that as
As
edging more
a gateway to
to
NATO.
NATO.
Yeah.
so
But you're right. They had put up a lot of economic. NATO had put up a lot of economic issues to aligning the Ukraine economy to be a member of NATO, and they didn't qualify under the existing conditions, and they would have had to make exceptions to for that to happen. But still, I'm saying Ukraine was pressing on it. United States was probably encouraging it, and that, I mean, we have to realize that Mr. Putin is not a totally rational person,
I
right?
agree with you 100%.
So another person, I think, like the Chinese leader would have dealt with that differently. Just as I think he will deal with the Taiwan issue differently than how um, Russia dealt with their concern their issues with Ukraine.
But, but you mean they won't invade them?
I don't think they'll invade
Why
them.
did they circle them, and what are the exercises
That's
about?
provocation, and that's
But
just
then
gamesmanship.
provocation to what
Yeah,
end, though, Gregory?
to show don't step out of line.
And the only reason apparently they're not doing it is because America has pledged support for them.
You
But
think America could take on yet another? I don't
but
think that
that's the
there's no
question.
interest. There's no
That's the
interest for
question.
China and America to do more than what they're doing right now. Just Bella hosting.
Well, let's segue into another matter right now, because we're looking at the Taiwanese situation, and then we
Mhm.
look at our situation. Um, would we have to be worried, should in the event that China made a move on Taiwan, that we might have to be careful of our scenario and situation?
We are little fish in it, not even a grain of sand in the whole barrel.
No,
But
no, no.
I think
I don't mean
no,
in
no,
there,
no. But
in
I'm saying
theirs.
it's not going to affect us. The only thing I want us to do is, if Taiwan is our real good friend, is to make the day China takes over their country by force, that they make all of the loans they have given to Belize a grant. I want them to just pass that in their legislature
Let me, Sonny, let me ask
so
you a
that
question.
Tiger doesn't have
Let me
his
let me ask you a question. If China would say to Belize, listen
Mhm.
to me, we don't support we, forget about Taiwan, we will forgive all the loans at your own Taiwan. Would you recommend Belize go with China?
Not on that regard, but I think if China take over Taiwan, we have no choice but to go with China.
But
But I believe I don't just believe in fair weather friends. We have stuck for whatever reason. We have made an alliance with Taiwan. I think until there's some real national interest, Belize should always act in its own national interest. And I don't believe that right now China has the national interest of any of the countries that it's putting money in
but
Jamaica, in Barbados, and in those African countries. I don't think they're doing it with the interests of those countries. It is purely, and no country acts in such
that's what
benevolent
I'm
way that,
saying. That's what I'm
yeah,
getting ready to say.
yeah,
That happens anyway.
yes, but
I am saying though that we have a situation similar, and this might be why we have to support Taiwan, because
mhm,
should China make that move, then I
mhm,
mean, and remember the Monroe document, the doctrine goes out the window, and
mhm.
then it opens up for our situation then with Guatemala to become more volatile, and
Mhm.
But
that is what I'm saying. And
well,
George is back. George is back, and let's see if we can hear him.
yeah, Mr. Chair, I just want to identify with the point made
Yes,
by
sir.
Mr. Allison that those countries, and again, I might get this wrong, that those countries that support China, um, China doesn't have their interests at heart, or is it the other way around? What is it that you
Yeah,
said, Mr.
that's what I said. That's what I said.
China doesn't have their interests at heart? Well, the question that I would ask you is what is it that would demonstrate that China doesn't have their interests at heart? Because when you look at the Americas, for example, China has significant investment throughout Central and South America, and it's mainly in relation to infrastructure, whether it's railroad or whether it's fishing stations or whether it's dams. Um, China has significant investments, and as we know, investments does benefit both sides.
But
I
the
think
motives can be selfish.
that has, well, it's not being selfish. It's being, China is acting in its own interest, and that
Okay.
interest coincides with the countries that are in partnership with China to the extent that a number of countries have kind of jettisoned Taiwan
Yeah.
in favor of China. I'm just trying to get your
Well,
mind around thing
we just
that
have to look at the punitive ways
that
China dealt with countries that kind of fails on their loan. They go and they seize their port and they act in a
but
very go
Aggressive.
ahead. Yeah, yeah.
So,
In a
yeah, but
but but
there are two
but
issues here that I think we're overlooking. You
I am trying.
you have the fundamental principle advocated by the United Nations for each country to have the right to exercise its individual sovereignty. Now, that is an ideal situation that is not likely to be achieved. But that's a principle of the United Nations, which was supported by all members of the United Nations. Now,
But
Mhm.
let's deal with the reality now. Let's deal with the reality and put aside principle. Because it seems that in geopolitics, because of the spheres of influence being promoted by Russia, China, the United States, those three in particular. So this when Mr. Morrison said that China does not really have the interests of those countries at heart, I agree with him 100%. What China is doing is to expand its sphere of influence. That's what he's doing. Russia,
well
Russia
well
is at a disadvantage today to expand its sphere of influence the way China is doing it. China is doing it through economic support, whereas Russia wants to do it by expansionary military policy. And that
well
Russia will need China, otherwise, Russia will be out.
Mhm.
but I'm trying to understand what criteria one would use to determine whether or not China or any other country has the interest of those countries that it chooses to exercise friendship and partnerships with. Because I don't know how one could say, for example, that China doesn't have the interest of, for example, Honduras at heart. They have uh, they have shifted alliance from Taiwan to China. Jamaica has. Basically, almost the entire Caribbean has. And there has to be some mutualistic benefit for that to happen. So I'm just trying to intellectually uh, 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 get to a point where I can perhaps see the logic in your argument that China doesn't have their interests at heart. There has to be, in mutualism, there has to be a meeting of the mind somewhere.
Yes,
And
but
so I'm not seeing where China doesn't have. So one of the things that China proposes to do, for example, is China is proposing a new canal through Nicaragua.
yeah,
This is an investment proposition for China, and
yeah,
it's also an investment proposition for Nicaragua. One has the capital and the technology, and the other has essentially the physical land space to do it. So I am trying to understand what is it that one would look at from that relationship and say, you know what, China don't have the interest of their people at heart. This is what I'm trying to get to.
can I then
Well,
can I expound
it's
for you? Can I
go
expound?
ahead, go ahead.
I am saying to you that there was one time what we call the bipolar world. It was the Soviet Union and the United States. China was nowhere near. Now, when the Soviet Union was dismantled, Russia evidently lost the influence it had. America then superseded and became a unipolar world. America was the superpower and to some extent still is. But Russia began to gain a lot of it. I mean, China began to make it grow faster than the United States. Faster than the United States. But China took up a policy of a non intervention military policy, except what they have with Taiwan. And China decided to carry out foreign policy where he will win friends through economic interests. Now, put that tripolar world outside when they try to build now with Russia, China, and the United States. But look at the non-aligned countries. We were a part of the non-aligned countries. The non-aligned countries now had the interests of the other countries at heart because they were not a member of that. They could have never become a member of the bipolar world. So what the 77 did, they came together as a non-aligned countries to look after the interests of each one. So that to me was a case where countries came together out of mutual interest for each other.
Yes.
Allied countries was never advocating for no spheres of influence and to be one member of the bipolar world or the tripolar world. So to me, we have to look on the reality of the global politics.
But
Maybe,
but but
maybe we need to consider in a quadrupolar world because you also have bigger countries like India and
but
Brazil and those ones.
Well, the argument is being made, Mr. Chairman, that the more countries you can have
Yes.
with powers, the less chances of there being conflict.
Yeah.
That is
but
why countries don't believe that there should be a unipolar world run
Right.
by neither the United States, China, nor Russia. None of them.
Yep.
Yeah, I
Yep.
think so.
but
Yeah.
Judge, go ahead, Judge.
I think to the point that the chairman has made, essentially we have gone from a unipolar world back in the day, between the industrial revolution, where Britain was the basically the universal
Hegemonic
power,
power. Yeah. Yep.
and then that was inherited by the United States essentially after World War II,
That's
and that changed at some point when Russia became a military power, and so it became a bipolar world. With the collapse of Russia, I believe in the early 80s, it became a unipolar world. And
Hmm.
now we're at a stage where it's not unipolar anymore. And I think that the chairman has basically used the correct terms. It's a multipolar world. And I don't know that the United States has awakened to that reality, you know. But I'll get back to the point that I'm making that I really don't see where China is acting in any way with those countries that it has diplomatic relations and those countries that it has expressed an economic mutual economic interest, that it is not acting in a way that is mutually beneficial. I am not seeing that.
I
The
think you.
question that I would
Yeah.
have for Gregory would be, how would you, do you believe that the United States has the interests of Belize at heart, um, versus versus
China.
for example, does the United States have the Americas at heart? And I'm trying to understand what is it that would demonstrate that the United States may or may not have
But
the
Okay.
Judge,
Americas.
let me say this. Let me say this because I believe that that kind of like that one touchy thing there, because nobody really, everybody has their own personal interest first at heart.
That's right.
Um,
Yes,
I
Hmm.
hear what
Hmm.
you're saying, that you
That's
believe
not
that they also are
yes,
looking out for the interests of the other parties, but then so is everybody else, because you could say the same thing about the U.S. The
but
U.S. has done some good.
but but what Gregory is saying and what Mr. Joe is saying is that China does not have the interests of these countries at heart. But I am saying if it doesn't, let us measure that against the United States. Does the United States have the interests of the Caribbean and the remainder of Latin America in general at heart? This is what I'm trying to.
There's an old saying,
It
the
used to
devil
be
you know than the devil you don't, although I don't like any devil. But one of the things I want to say is that China does not disclose publicly any of the loan arrangement it makes with any country. Um, you know that when you get loan from European countries, that loan amount and stuff is always known. China has in some ways acted very harshly with countries when they fail on their loan arrangement, and gone in and seized ports and different national
Which country has they done it with that you
How
know of?
often is that, Mr. Morrison?
I have to
And
look at I have to look at it. I don't want to say some name a country wrong, but I've heard of
has
them
been the interest of the
seizing.
rule
Let
of
me finish. Let me finish. Let me just. I've heard of them seizing
law.
mining operation, a
But,
large mining
but,
operation that's probably like 3-4% of some African countries, because the first thing, the loan arrangement was skewed, and
well,
probably it always is. Whenever the loaner is making it, it's always skewed, whether it's your
yeah,
bank or my bank. But 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 it had no way of succeeding in the very start, and therefore it seems that the entire arrangement was to just do what they end up doing, just
but,
taking over these properties and
but,
having control of them for 90
but
years or whatever.
Mr. Morrison, are you suggesting that China is acting ultranational in the sense that it is enforcing its own prerogatives in regard to those loans,
Yes.
this national jurisdiction? Is this what you're suggesting?
Yes, yes,
That,
yes.
that, that
And see,
China is imposing
the
its
thing
own
is,
laws within
yeah,
these countries?
yeah, what we
Uh,
have to understand is, when you get a loan from American, you get a loan from an American bank. Yeah, you may have CIA intervention and all that kind of stuff, but when you're getting a loan from China, you're getting a state loan from the government that has the military power and everything that bears down with that. At
Anyway, let me read something. Hold on, guys. Hold on. Let me read something for those guys, for the benefit of those who doesn't have phones. I can't understand why anyone in a small developing nation would suggest that China's interests align with ours. Gentlemen, you speak of mutual interests and mutual benefits. What the hell? If you need to give them land and control of your infrastructure in exchange for technological support, then how do you justify this? Can we grow more land? Once you give it away, it's gone, dude. Now
yeah.
that I don't know. So, this guy Sam replies to him, "Yes, Ken Clare, but for 400 years, Western Europe and the U.S. exploit, and nothing happens, only debts." It's kind of getting convoluted. I
What,
go ahead, George. Go ahead. You say what you
what,
have to
what
say.
is the convoluted statement that he's making there? Somehow it seems contradictory, you
Uh,
know?
No, I think he made a good point. I think he made a good
Well,
point.
he made, to you he made a good point, but I'm saying that the nature of transactional arrangement is that there's obligations on both sides, and if you have breached your obligation, then there has to be some enforcement mechanism. This is no different from the treatment of the United States and Great Britain as former.
No, the US does not come and take your land if you don't do it.
Um,
They may act in other ways, but you don't have the state coming and
well, Gregory,
sending military in that
let's
regard.
be real, though, Gregory. If you come up with an agreement, if you make a loan, or some kind of plan, then don't you have a responsibility to, and that would be on you, not
I
the
understand.
debtor who comes and wants to collect, because we all want to collect what is owed to us.
Yeah.
So I hear you saying that China is kind of harsh in its debt collections as opposed to maybe the US or England,
I'm saying this, they send the state to kind of collect. They
when
send the
that is
state.
state to the borrow from.
Yeah,
So
exactly. And that's the difference
maybe the best
getting
thing
money
to
from that's the difference getting money from IMF or getting money from the World Bank or getting money from Chase.
so maybe it's better, got that estate
Mr.
for that.
Chairman, Mr.
Uh,
Chairman, you seem to be agreeing with Mr. Morrison that China is acting uh, in a way that is supranational to national jurisdiction, and I don't agree with that. China does not have an army to come into your country or some alternate enforcement mechanism outside of what the country has,
Of course
which
I'm
they
is a
do.
part
saying
Of
I,
course
I
they
of
do.
I don't know that I'm agreeing with him. What I'm saying is that if you take a loan and you have a debt, you have an obligation to honor that debt or work something out. Gregory is saying that China might be a bit harsh and inflexible when it comes to that, while other countries might be. But this is not agreeing in anywhere with him saying, I don't know that China has gone and done that. But if he has seen it somewhere, he says.
Yes.
And Joe has made that point that when you say something like that, though, you're kind of like owe it to the conversation to bring the facts with you. Um,
Okay.
I agree with that, but I'm saying that if you make a loan, if you sign on to an agreement, then I mean, if you got a credit union, Miss Jane, who are the nicest person supposed in the world, will come for your house. Is there
yeah.
anything? So what are you telling me?
Can we agree on something here that every country in the world, I would say, pursue its national interest? Everyone. The United States does, just as Belize and China and Costa Rica. We all look after our national interests. No, we are not in a position to look after our national interests as China and Russia would. So, what happens to the smaller countries? If we believe that we can benefit from what China has to offer, we would tend to move towards getting what China has to offer us in our national interests.
Hmm.
That's what countries will do. Now, what China has been doing in expanding its sphere of influence was to use economic policies. That's what China has been doing and has been very successful because the countries in this
Joe,
part of the world are heavily dependent upon support from those countries.
Joe, what has Taiwan been doing?
Taiwan
Huh?
has, Taiwan has been giving support to Belize.
The same thing.
Yes,
It's
it
the
has
very
been.
same thing.
Yes, it was looking after its national interests.
And it's an interest, almost selfish interest, I might say,
It
because
is
they need the
it's
support
not selfish
in their
interest.
fight to stay
So,
independent.
yeah, but what
Uh,
I'm saying
uh
here, Mr. Chairman, is
yeah.
that the United Nations principle is not being adhered to by the very members of the United
Well,
Nations.
it's never is. I mean, I have to
Yes,
wonder about the United Nations.
we don't want to be at the United Nations.
Yeah, because yeah, I mean, but you have to
When
look
you
at it.
at your national interests, and if you say tomorrow China comes with a bigger offer to Belize, financially and economically, what would be the decision? What do you think the decision we should make?
Well, with what? Say it again. Ask the question.
I am saying
If China comes with a bigger package than Taiwan,
with a bigger package to offer
uh,
in our interest in terms of economic development,
uh,
if we go for it.
will they come with a guarantee that Guatemala will not touch us, or they will give us?
Leave out the guarantee.
It have to be that. We
Right.
have that. That I think is the biggest stake
All right.
here.
If
Not
Taiwan,
to leave it the money to some politician. I hope.
Taiwan says we're going to defend Belize against Guatemala, China said we want to defend you too. But China, they give we more financial and economic help. Which one would you go with? The two of them, they give you the same protection against Guatemala because
You,
they have to protect their interests in Belize.
you mean Taiwan?
No, I am saying if China or Taiwan,
Right. They both can protect we.
you see, when countries have investment in another, that's one of the benefits you can get
Yeah,
from
yeah, yeah, but not good. Not good.
all
Can
I'm saying. I,
Does Taiwan have the power to
the same
protect us?
I'm putting.
Does
Taiwan,
Taiwan have
Taiwan,
the influence?
China is offering you more than what Taiwan is offering. Whatever is it you want.
Right.
Will you go with China because it is offering
But
you?
there are a lot of variables you have to consider, Joe.
All right, let's consider this.
Not for me. Not for me. I'll go with China because I have no principled belief. Taiwanese are Chinese. They're just in a different location, 50
Well,
miles off from.
that one statement there that's kind of, I don't know. Don't they deserve to be independent? They've been independent for long.
Well, I don't know that they're truly an independent country. It's not
Well,
just
can you
that they
say the
could.
same about? Is not the same doubt that has been raised by about Belize also from the
N-
Guatemalan side of you?
No, no, I think Belize is different. Belize have always been an independent country. Taiwan
We,
was part of China until the Japanese kind of created that separation and they went to war, and some people went to Taiwan
right,
and
and
such.
establish a new government.
Yes, yes, yes.
Should
So
they?
so they're a little different kind of situation. But I'm not saying they're not entitled to their independence. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying if China comes and offer us a guarantee and offers us to help us in developing technology and move, and they set out a plan and say, Belize will move you from a third world country that in 25 years you'll be a second world country, and these are the resources and things you have that you could exploit, and here you can and will set you up for that, and they offer that, I will take that. I will
I
take
hear
that.
you. And Joe is asking if Taiwan brought the same package and the same plan. Um, could we?
Will I go to no, because I believe that China would ultimately have the resource to complete it more. They have 1 billion 4 people, 1.4 billion. Taiwan has, I think, 16 or 36 million. I can't remember right
That's
now,
still a
but
lot. How much does Guatemala have?
Guatemala has 15 or 19. I can't remember for
So
sure.
you know, be Taiwan is in a position then to defend us.
It's
If
in a
it comes
position to defend us, but not if China is supporting
Guatemala.
Guatemala in that regard.
Why I hope we don't get to that point because then America would then be on some side or the other. But
Yeah.
that one very tough
I think, Mr.
situation.
Chairman,
Well, well,
I
Mr.
must give
Chairman,
credit to Mr. Morrison because I think he was candid enough to say exactly what some of us might have wanted to say. He's saying simple. He's going to the highest bidder.
I'm going to
uh,
Belize national to our national interests.
That's right, out of his national interest.
uh, uh,
Now, the truth about it, how many of us in the world today is supporting the other out of principle? How many of us are doing it?
You mean what? Supporting China or Taiwan?
A country and the principle of the right to individual sovereignty.
You talk about Taiwan, of course.
Yes,
Any
yes.
country for that matter, including
Yeah,
Belize.
yeah, but right now, I think that the issue of Taiwan that's in question. I believe that in principle they should what the people of Taiwan wants, and 16 million should be able to make a decision as to whether they want to be independent or be a part of China. I believe that if the people of Taiwan wants to be an independent nation, they have proven that they can be, and a successful one at that. Then I think they should be allowed to exist as an independent state.
Yeah,
That was not my argument. I did not say that Taiwanese are not entitled to in their independence and their sovereignty and all that. I
Yeah,
said
but
which
yeah,
one
you were
I would
showing that
support.
you
I
were
said which one
you pose
I
a
would.
scenario. You pose a
Yeah.
scenario as to
Yes.
whether yeah, which one where should
Which one
China
I'll
do
go
that?
with. Which
But
one
then
I will
again,
go
this
with.
brings us to what Joe is saying. That throws out of the window the whole principle of supporting an independent country, which puts us in jeopardy because we are relying upon everybody else to support our right to exist. Should Guatemala decide that they want to get upstart, no?
what is the most sensible thing to do, tonight, Mr. Chairman? Belize doesn't have the wherewithal to ever develop one military to defend themselves against Guatemala. That is nonsense. So therefore, Belize have to pursue a course. When we went to get support internationally, two, we went to the International Court of Justice.
Hmm.
Belize cannot resolve this problem militarily
Hmm.
unless we have a country like maybe the United States or a bigger country that can come to our aid. Taiwan
Hmm.
goes with America because he know that if need be, he can more depend on America to defend against China. But Belize can't defend Taiwan against China. So Belize, China needed our number only for votes in the international forum. But right now they have 13, and they are leaving here because China is offering more.
Yeah.
I believe that it is obvious that the situation between Belize, Guatemala, and Red China versus Taiwan is very much alike. And I believe in principle we should stand with Taiwan in the sense that it deserves the right to self-determination. We have gone to the world community uh, 40 years ago and we have sung the very thing that Taiwan is singing, that, you know what, they deserve their independence. And so in principle, we should support that. And in practice, we should, and we have. We
You
have
almost
stood with
have to.
we have stood with Taiwan in the United Nations. We have demonstrated that we believe in the principle, and we have demonstrated that. The point of whether or not we should align with China versus Taiwan, whether we should jettison Taiwan for China, I believe, Mr. Chairman, that you hit the nail on the head when you basically said, well, it's really a complex issue and it's not unidimensional. It's not a fact that China would bring bigger money and then you said, all right, China, we would side with you. I believe that the whole issue of the 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 the, the, the military aspect of it, the sovereignty, the protection aspect of it, has to be a part and parcel of that which China should bring for us to even consider maybe not siding with Taiwan going forward.
But
You know,
Mr.
Set a terrible precedent. I'll tell you that
Mr. Margaret,
for
the
that to be
reality of
allowed.
it is that Belize, in its support for Taiwan, is simply because China is not prepared to compete with Taiwan for Belize.
Exactly.
That's all.
You really think that? So the print
I don't think so. It's a fact.
there's no principal position here. You're saying, Joe.
No, no. What
No.
happened?
No.
China
But
doesn't.
I don't know. There'd have to be a referendum, if you will, on that.
No, we
Uh,
don't
uh,
need a referendum. I'm telling you what I experienced while in government.
Yeah. Yeah.
We had a discussion that we had to have around the table. Do we go with Taiwan or do we go with China? The truth about it, China wasn't offering anything much except one bridge and take back. But if China had come to us and offered us, take us to the mountaintop and offered us the kingdom, that would have been maybe different. But
you mean
China doesn't, Belize is too small for China to want to compete with Taiwan over.
so? You mean
Yeah.
the Bell China Bridge is not there anymore?
No, no, that wasn't.
I just
It's just
I'm
they didn't
kidding.
follow they didn't follow through with anything else, he
They
meant.
didn't
Yeah,
follow.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
I
Um,
wouldn't use the,
and
I wouldn't use the argument of size as a determinant as to that which China would be willing to bargain for, because there are a range of very, very small nations in the Caribbean where China has basically gone and invested in infrastructure. So I wouldn't use size as a determinant. People will recall that the current administration, while they were in opposition, there were trips to China, or a trip to China
Mhm.
in which a person that is now a minister has made with an entourage. And the
yes,
speculation, and I don't know this for a fact, but the speculation was that it was a function of China kind of cozying up to us to, as it were, change horses
I
in
recall that.
the
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
diplomatic way.
I
And
recall that.
I also recall when the government when the current government was in opposition, they were danging Taiwan. Now
Yes,
they are in
yeah,
full embrace,
yeah.
you know?
That was interesting.
The reality of the world, and I'm speaking now from my experience in government, because we had those decisions that we had to be looking at. The reality in the world is that you have to not just ignore principle, but you have to balance that principle with pragmatism.
Yeah.
You could be as thick of a doctrine and tenet, which is good. I am not against it, but
Hmm.
you have to balance it with pragmatism.
Let
So
me
when you deal in the world, when you deal in this world of diplomacy, you have to look after your interests, and your interests will have to be tied with the interests of some other countries who you think can benefit your interests.
let
So
me
it is,
ask let me ask a question, because if anybody knows, it's interesting. We know that China has its tentacles not only in the support it gives to countries, but the people it sends to these countries.
That's
They're
correct.
like China, for instance. America, I think, would have a problem if they had to encounter some kind of conflict with China, in that they couldn't do what they did after in World War II and concentrate the say the Japanese in a camps. They'd have a problem with that. Now, the people coming to China, to Belize, are they all from Taiwan, or do we have people coming from mainland China that might have the interests of mainland China at heart? Do you know, Joe? What would you think?
From the period of my time is that there was no doubt that China had made some overtures, but it was nothing significant. China felt at the time that he need not put too much into it.
And the
And
original Chinese, though, that are in Belize, like the Augusta Kwan and then
that,
Simon Kwan, came from China, right? Mainland China.
that's
But the recent Chinese are mainly from Taiwan. Is that right?
that is correct.
Okay.
That
But
is
but
correct.
not because they come from Taiwan mean they're all just loyal to Taiwan. You have to always recognize that there's a good majority of people in Taiwan that
That
believes that Taiwan should go back to
Are you
China.
serious? What
Yes,
percent
there
do you
is.
think? What percent do you think?
I have
Uh,
no idea what percentage, but I know the opposition party right now that wants to form the next government, their leadership believes in a more conciliatory um, relationship with mainland China.
And that's a
So the
fact. It's a fact.
so
That's exactly what they're doing.
yeah, we're
yeah,
conciliatory, but not
conciliatory.
in surrendering their independence, or
We
just
don't know
having
how
good
far that
relations,
goes. We don't know how that far that goes.
No, the
But it means
opposition
they
party,
want more trade relationship. They want
that's right.
which makes sense.
more social and communication.
That's right.
I mean, family type connections. So
Gregory, there are some people in Belize that want more trade relations and social interaction with the Guatemalans, because
and that is a problem. That
you
is a
see,
problem
if you
when
speak to people
somebody.
along the border towns, many
Mhm.
have relatives on the other side. They get
Yes,
along
yes,
well.
yes.
So I
Let's
And
come
that's
mean,
always the problem, right? That's always the
to the
problem when a bigger country
the
wants you
opposition in
because it
power.
means you could more easily fold
and there are
into their
people who believe
control.
that the invasion has occurred at that level. Right. Also, there, in particular, when our politicians have over the past years given away a lot of citizenships illegally,
Yes,
unconstitutionally, if I
yes.
may say so,
But
to
I
a
think
lot of Guatemalans.
let's come back to the
But
point that Gregory made. And I was in Taiwan myself, and I spent a good while there. No, the opposition, no, is not saying that they want to become subordinated to mainland China. No, what they are advocating for is peaceful coexistence.
Oh, you would hope, no?
And they believe that if they begin to open relations with China, trade with them, begin to socialize, begin to have interaction with sports and every aspect, they believe that China may temper their approach and not be too aggressive towards Taiwan. The present government in Taiwan is more outspoken against China.
We have good experience from Belize, when I could tell you that not believe with the opposition. So when they're in opposition, when they get in a government, then you know where they stand on issues like that. And
yes.
for the opposition, then you don't know whether they try get, or whether they try that, like Trump. You know what I'm saying? They will say one thing, but in their hearts they have totally different motives.
But Mr.
So
Chairman, again, let's look at the reality. If the opposition was not of the opinion that the large numbers of the Taiwanese people wants that peaceful
you got a
coexistence,
point. You got a point.
should not be using it as a plank in his campaign.
You got a point.
When
That
Mr.
that
Morrison said that there are Taiwanese who are not so aggressive towards China, that is true.
But I'd like to see a consensus coming out of there. What what does the majority of Taiwanese? Because if they do, then I agree they ought to be independent and remain so. But if the majority wants to go back to China, who are we or anybody or any other country to say why this is what the people want? We know for a fact that Belizeans, the majority of Belizeans, want to remain independent and don't want anything to do with Guatemala. Or not said don't want, but certainly don't want to be a part of Guatemala. And I sincerely believe there are a lot of Guatemalans who have come to Belize from Guatemala who do not want to see Belize different. I mean, as the same as Guatemala. They come here because they want to escape conditions over there.
When
So,
Taiwan wanted to become an observer at the WHO, I went every year to the meeting at the WHO, and I was the one that moved the motion and spoke on the motion before the World Health Organization for China to become, I mean, for Taiwan to become an observer. Now, to tell you the preparation that we went into and the support I got from Taiwan and the lobbying that we were doing prior to the meeting, that in the end we won the vote. Taiwan won the vote
Yep.
to become an observer.
and
So,
who? All right, who
so we
won
did
the?
things for them. We did things for them.
The take that I would get from this, Mr. Chairman, is that in relation to Taiwan, it's not that they want to decouple whatever uh, independence, quote unquote, they have, because I don't know that they're independent the way that Belize is independent. I don't know that Taiwan is a member of the UN
No, they're not.
per se as an independent state. But I
Okay.
think the point made by Joe that it's not that they want to be a colony of China as much as they're treading in a way that we would call a kind of dove strategy. They don't want to be in a position to antagonize a larger country that could
and
ultimately take them over militarily.
and
You
I
that's
know,
think
understandable.
I
That's
think
understandable.
Taiwan would want to have the status and a relationship with China and be on the same level as they are right now.
But
And I
what
don't
does
think I don't
China? What does
that's not what
China
China
want?
wants.
Because that's what's important.
China wants
right?
to have full political influence over the
So
Chinese
that because
government and
that is where,
economy
yeah,
and
yeah,
economy.
yeah.
If
I,
China, Taiwan is on the roll to become the 18th largest economy in the world, I think in 2024, 2025. And so China sees that just as they did in Hong Kong. They see that those type of open free economy a gateway to get goods and services and technology from the West, and that's what they want.
but
That's
not
what
if
they
they
want.
envelope it. Not if they bring them into their folds and they're no longer they're then viewed as China as opposed to a separate country which can attract that kind of
Yeah. Well,
of
look what
trade
they're
and stuff.
doing look what they're doing in Hong Kong. They have totally changed the way that government was structured, and they have moved them in much closer, and they're not as independent as the Hong Kongese had hoped they would be in terms of determining their own internal affairs.
Actually, on the contrary, I think they're not as bad as they thought they would be. Because a lot of Chinese who have fled from Hong Kong returned to Hong Kong when they realized that China taking over after that lease
Yes.
was finished,
Yeah.
that they did not strangle the way of life as they felt they would and bring them back into the old Chinese way. In fact, it seems like China itself has moved away from the old Chinese way to a more modern.
Of course, China has modernized.
Oh
China has
man,
modernized.
they've
They-
grown
they- yeah.
exponentially,
Yeah.
and
But
Well,
what we have to think, China has 1.4 billion people. They have probably about 200 or 300 million that's moving into normal middle class, but they still
right.
have a billion point two people or billion point one people that are in dire poverty. You see?
You
So,
have it in every country though,
but look at the
Gregory.
percentage. I'm saying,
But look at the numbers.
But
This
well,
is
not even numbers. Look
but
at where they were before.
I beg to disagree.
Some improvement of where they were before.
I think we should do a fact check on that one. Let me tell you why. You know, the number one country in the world now in population is India, right?
yes,
All
yes,
right, it surpassed China.
yeah,
China, over the last 10 years, per capita wise, has made the greatest stride in the world to
that's
bring people
correct.
out of poverty.
That's correct.
So I don't think China has that amount of poverty like you're saying. China was smart enough, and like Russia, China, what it did, it threw up the economy to some extent, but they kept control over the politics. Russia gone free up both until when Putin came back and he decided to pull them back in. So I think China is in fact a threat to the United States in terms of economic power, quicker than the military power. It is a serious threat to the
No,
United States.
Well,
I don't disagree with you because I pointed out China has 3 or 400 million people that are now in a middle class situation, and they have
right.
um,
More moving up.
and they're moving up. But what
Yeah.
I was trying to contrast is that still more than twice that amount of people, more than 3 times that amount of people, still are in a deep, dire degree of poverty where they don't have some of the very basic resources. And I don't. If you look at the per capita income in China, you'll see exactly the story that they're probably down to a couple $100 a year.
And I say, look at the trajectory. Don't look at where they are instantaneous. Look at where they
Well,
are coming from in terms of their economic circumstances and the quality of life.
And where they're
So
going.
It's not,
China is on upward
yeah,
trajectory.
Officer Gregory, it's not a fair comparison to use the per capita of China without using the cost of living.
I understand. I
Because
understand. I
China has
understand.
very low cost of living.
Yeah,
So
yeah. No,
while
I understand.
it look low, relatively speaking, its cost of living is low. So that is standard of living you look at.
Yeah. No, I understand. I understand. I was just giving you that
Standard of
fact.
living has in
And
fact increasing.
I was trying to smoke the window.
and we can see also the US and their cost of living, but they have the money to support it. The problem, the bigger problem of Belize, we got this a high cost of living, but we not got the money. And I don't know if we population are going, we're not going in the other direction from China, because China is indeed lifting a lot of its people. A lot of those who were and in fact, the problem is that lots who were doing farming have run to the bigger cities and are now in the technological age and doing very well.
Well,
So,
the problem for Belize is that we keep importing more and more people, and it very much destabilize our markets and our economic system. And as we continue to do that, it's just going to get worse. So
all right, but
the
Gregory,
prospect for, well, let me just finish. The
yeah, go ahead,
prospect for
finish that
Belize
point.
is not good because we have, if we are going to try and absorb every 5 years, 60,000 people that doesn't come with anything other than the shirt on their back. I'm not saying every single
But
one,
a lot of
but
people go to America that way
yeah,
Uh-uh.
but America
they,
could
and
absorb it.
join the labor force.
Mr.
But
Chairman, please don't
America,
Uh-huh.
comparison.
No, no, but I mean, it is a fair
no,
comparison.
it's not because
Certainly not.
for
You are
Belize, it's a
over.
third of our population.
That's right.
Immigration that comes to
That's right.
America is not
But a lot of them people have
significant.
gone into farming, which is necessary for Belize.
Uh,
Um,
I don't know
I
because we're not to some
I
degree. I'm not
feel,
arguing that. I'm not arguing that. I'm just saying it creates issues for the
I hear
growth
you. I
and
hear
for
you. I hear you.
dealing with poverty
And
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 such.
tell me
but,
something.
but,
Go.
Mr. Chairman has said they
Yes.
gone into farming, but it's merely subsistence farming.
Exactly.
To a large
Exactly.
extent, the Mennonites and their methods have still remained the number one agriculture producers. A lot of what the immigrants are doing is unsustainable hill slope type slash and burn agriculture, which has environmental consequences. And it's not that they're all doing that, but I think that a significant amount are. So I think when you treat with the whole issue of immigrants and who you will let in, you have to be sensible and it has to align with what your national priorities are.
Let me
Um,
uh, let me ask a question because we're hearing of the Haitians and the Jamaicans that are turned back. Would you be in favor of letting those people in to balance the demographics as such?
But they're
Uh,
not staying. They're using Belize as a transit point. If they were staying and helping to participate in the economic development of the country, that's fine. I believe that we should do exactly what the government has proposed to do because because they are violating Belize law and it's putting pressure on the government of Belize because they're basically seen as human trafficking because they are sent here
well, you're seeing it
from
from the American standpoint, of course.
That's from the American standpoint, but
Yeah,
they're not
yeah.
staying. They're not staying.
Um,
The record shows. Let
They're
me
staying
finish
there
this.
when they go there. That's where they're going, up
Exactly,
there.
exactly. So they come and they stay a week in Belize, and then they're at the border, and then they are nowhere to be
that's an
accounted
American
for.
problem. It's an American
Correct,
problem.
correct,
We have
correct,
certain
correct.
obligations under the Treaty of Chaguaramas
Yeah.
to treat with the Haitians in a way that we treat with other persons from the Caribbean, from the English-speaking Caribbean.
But they're violating our laws, and that's what
So
our
I
prime
think
minister
that
said.
Belize is setting itself up for some serious lawsuits
No,
in
they're
relation
not. They're not,
to the
because they're violating our laws.
Jamaicans.
But
No, no, but Belize, sorry,
go ahead, Joe. Go ahead.
Belize under the treaty has a right to derogate where it believes that it is not in the interest for those people to be coming. Now, if you have people coming to use Belize as a transient route to get into the United States, which will offend the United States for sure, why should we run the risk of doing it? The importation into a country, which we call migration, must be determined, and the human capital, apart from the sanctuary type where people that run away from persecution. What came to Belize was the people fleeing the civil wars in Central America. So we were more a sanctuary for them. If we were carrying out a proper immigration policy, you will look for human capital where the return on that human capital will be greater than the overhead cost to the government.
Right.
The point I'm making here, and this is important for us to do, when those people came from Central America, we can say, boy, well, they are good bricklayers. They can handle cement well. They can work on the land. But when you look at the overhead cost of carrying them, did it worth it?
Mhm.
No. Under the Treaty of Chaguaramas, while we're talking about a free movement, because we moved beyond free trade as it was, and we have gone out to the point of where we are just before a political union, the free movement evidently must be done in a regulated fashion. So Belize, to me, has done nothing wrong in what they did recently, because these people were violating
You to,
laws.
you to talk about what they did with those Jamaicans and Haitians.
Yes.
But when you say, I think you're generalizing and suggesting that the people that came as bricklayers and workers and whatnot did not contribute and were more a load. I think there are those who came and did burden the welfare systems and whatnot.
Well,
Yeah, but
Well, sometimes it's not only welfare, but it's infrastructure. You need
And the
more
whole
hospital
infrastructure.
space.
but,
True.
You
Yes,
need
yes,
you need
yes.
you need to clear more land and
yeah, but
maintain
but
more.
how do we know that the immigrants from Guatemala and Honduras are not on their way north? How do we know that?
Because
the,
they
Why are
stay.
A
Because
good
they
point.
because they make up our
why are we treating
population.
the
They stay.
Haitians and the Jamaicans differently?
yeah,
They,
They
but
they,
stayed.
they know a
They
whole
stayed.
they know a whole caravan. They know a whole caravan of them leave and go up there. But yeah, that is
Yeah,
a good point. But
but
those
it's not
are the ones
customary
that
that they.
want it to
It's
be Belize. We don't want
yeah,
the ones that are using Belize as a transient route to get into the United States. The
right.
people
Because
that came, the people that
But
came from Central America during the Civil War, the reason why we supported them staying was because the United Nations financed that.
yeah.
Remember, we had a thing set up in Belize, financed by the United Nations. The
Hmm.
money
we are saying now,
flee from the Civil Wars.
Yeah.
we are saying now fast forward to 2023, where the Latinos coming from Honduras, etc., are also on their way north. Why are we not deporting them? Why are we not having the same measures
They
that we
should
have
be.
for
If
Jamaicans and the Haitians?
Yeah,
is it
if
because
we
they're
could
not as black?
identify.
Could they
Haitians that
be?
are in the north.
Is it
No.
that they're not as black?
No, I think if we could identify those people that are part of that, then they should in fact be dealt with in
But,
the same
but
way.
but how can you presume that the
Yeah.
Jamaicans and the Haitians are not have no
Because they're
intention
not
of
staying.
leaving the
Because do you see them?
how can you-
Do you see them in the society? Do you see them in any
Well,
significant
where-
numbers in the society? Come.
I see Jamaicans and Haitians in the society.
No,
they,
that's
I've-
not what
they,
I'm saying. That's not what I'm saying. If a plane load comes with 600 people and then at the end of the week you only have 10 people from that grouping that left, come on now. Come
they
on
might be
now.
dying.
That's not realistic. Who is keeping the statistics? I
The
think that,
government is. The
that
government is
the
because the government
government
knows
has,
what no
the
what
government has a skewed perspective in relation to migration and immigration. That is what it has. And it's
I think,
exposing itself to a serious lawsuits.
you
And
know,
it's embarrassing us.
I really don't have a problem with the immigrants coming in from anywhere if they're gonna. But I think this is where our government needs to play the role that we elect them for, to look out for the interests of the people. If they come in and they can work and be and that's why I don't have a problem with the system where they legalize and have them pay their fair taxes and whatnot and ensure that they work legally while they're here. And America has done the same thing.
But
They,
Mr. Chairman, what we are not doing, and I'm pointing it out at this moment, when we are discussing these issues, let's say immigration, I think what we should agree on first, what should be our guidelines, our criteria for immigration into our
Policy, yeah.
country.
Yeah.
That's what we should do. If we can
What
agree
is
on that, then we can evaluate what is happening. But
yeah,
if each one of us have a different view of immigration policy, then we'll be talking from different perspectives.
well, also, I'll tell you what we should not be doing. The ones we should not take in are the ones who come with a criminal record. But you know what they do? They come in and they demand that they get a criminal record from Belize. How the hell you got a criminal record in Belize when you just get you? So why not get a criminal record from the country you're coming from, so you know what type of person you really are?
But
I
if but if
what?
we are clearly defined by law,
Uh huh.
immigration policy codified in law,
Uh huh.
then we can better say, well, listen, we agree with this policy. We have the consensus. Now,
Do do we have such a policy, Joe? That's the question.
of course we do. We have to. And our policy is not different from other countries. One,
But
we
we're
give,
not adhering.
we give sanctuary to people who are fleeing from political or economic persecutions. Most countries of the world do that. Two, you accept immigrants where the country will benefit from the immigrants in terms of.
Exactly. That makes sense.
Now, name any other one you want. We need a name two. Anybody else want to add to that too?
As long as they don't come in and hurt the country. I
No, no,
mean,
no, we let it say, no, 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 no. We let it say what you have to do. We
Well,
let it
well,
say,
you
here.
bring some you bring technical skills. I agree that
But no,
people.
here's the other one
the
that's
human
written.
capital must be
But
contributing to your development.
here's
Now,
Right.
one. Here's one that's written in the Constitution, that there should not be a member of a country that does not recognize our sovereignty. How about
thank
that
you,
one?
Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman,
Well,
no,
that
if
one
you
has been
have
violated by
law,
both of our
according to the
government.
law, then we can agree that there is a violation. Because
Right.
I believe there is a violation many times by the two parties of our
Yes.
immigration policy.
Of course, yeah, that's
So
understood.
Yeah.
the ones that stand out to me, that I evidently, I don't want to be sounding now to call any particular race of people because I'm not xenophobic. But why do we bring people to fried chicken? Why do we bring people to open restaurants? Why
Because
do
we never want to buy
Yeah.
fan talks.
Yeah,
No,
but I don't think those people when they come, they said they
we
were going to open a restaurant or anything like that.
no,
I think they always come with more heftier kind of portfolio of
And
doing
that's
things,
the
but
opportunity that opens up to them, right?
that's
Yeah.
that's
but
where that's where they migrate.
what
But
gentlemen,
but
remember,
but you know, but the
remember
big
that
concern I have about all that is the
Uh,
city council that allows 20 shops on one street, 20 restaurants, and people say, "Oh, the economy is going to determine winner loser." But we see what happens. We see a great degrade of the environment of the neighborhood and all that by having those situations. The economy is not always good enough to sort those things out, and since they have that, people then continue to live on minimal amount of existence, um, from the stores and stuff that they produce. They're all competing for little change. There isn't a lot of money floating around, enough to keep them going, but not a lot of money.
mm,
well, I think that one of the questions that one might want to ask is why is it that we have ended up with all the Taiwanese and to a lesser extent mainland Chinese in Belize? And that is a function of the economic citizenship program.
Hmm.
The economic
true.
citizenship program basically was well intentioned, it conceptualized that when Hong Kong went back to communist China,
Right.
that there would be the flight of capital
Hmm.
and there would be the flight of technology. And
Right.
Belize was putting itself in a position to benefit development wise.
Very
It
true.
was vision that we would have all of these fried chicken joints and the proliferation of supermarket. But it took a
All right.
number of people
We're gonna conclude that we run out of time. Yeah. Listen, gentlemen. It's interesting because this time about the topic, we never want to spend the whole show on this, but we did, and I have no problem with it. I thought it was very interesting and some things that needed to be aired out. But really, um, George, on your last point, finish that point. But make it
well,
concise.
I am saying, when people use the term PUDP, some people take umbrage and they get upset, but you could substitute the term PUDP for GOB, for the government of Belize. I believe that it has been a failed policy. And I'm mentioning that not to castigate anybody, but to say that it should be a learning experience for us, that in relation to the whole area of good governance, you would want to make sure that you follow through on what the policies and the legislations were intended to do going forward.
Yeah.
I believe that we could have had a different outcome. We could have put most of our unemployed people to work. I
Let me.
believe that people use the term cost of living and standard of living, and those are two very important terms. I believe that Belize could have had a very decent standard of living if in that one instance we had taken very seriously the issue of economic citizenship.
Let me say this, and our friend Joe has recommended that we put a segment of every show towards failure in government. And I think that you won't mind, George, and Gregory certainly has a lot to offer on this, that we each week look at part of this. This topic got really interesting tonight, and there's no way I could have steered this away from where it was going because it needed to go there, and I appreciate it. But every week we will do that. We will look at some of the ways in which we believe our government is failing and how we can improve it. What are some of the ideas we might have towards that end? I think folks out there who are listening, thank you very much. We really appreciate your input also. So when you have a little something to say, throw something in the comment box, no? And if not, even if not this show, then certainly the next show we'll address that to some degree. Gentlemen, it's 9 o'clock. I want to encourage folks to please support our fundraising that we're doing on Labor Day. We got another week before next Wednesday. I'll talk about it some more. But I'm hoping to get some assistance that we can get this child some medical follow up that he requires. No, thanks a lot, guys. Anybody got anything when they want showing that they never get? When I want to go with nothing
How
bound and
how
just.
I just wanted to ask you, how is the kid that had fallen off the horse?
Yeah, well, that's the guy we're trying to. He has come out of the hospital. He came out of the coma. It was 3 days in a coma, actually.
Okay. Okay.
It was looking touch and go for a while, and in fact, when the paramedics went to pick him up in the ambulance and they had him in the back, they were working on him for a while, and they weren't too hopeful. But the young man is young. He has strong will, apparently, um, and I think it'll be a big loss to us in this part because he's a super talent. One of the lead boys that I would have counted as a success story for us. You know that we
Right.
work with a bunch of kids here, and there's some who you could at some point you have to say, well, boy, then gone, the one gone, and we lose that. We don't want them more, but that's it. But then there are those who you see the potential and the possibility of bringing them to a good way, good path for life. And I look forward to some help for him now.
Okay,
Well,
great.
Mr.
Thank
Chair,
you.
I just wanted in closing say that I totally endorse the suggestion that you're making that at some point in the show, and it could be in the closure part, that we look at the failure of public governance slash government. And I'm saying that because I think that it could yield to some good outcomes. especially if we keep it on an issue level and we don't get into a UDP PUP type
Wonderful.
conversation. I think that if we handle it from a sort of policy and development standpoint, that it could go a long way in informing our listenership that there's a group of guys, and we have to get some lady on the show, Mr. Chair. There's a
Not,
group of
not.
people
Well, and I think it's more important that we keep the issues
have
in perspective.
a few things
So
up.
it'd be nice to have a female to look at instead of Trio Glamana again.
Yeah,
But not only UP and UDP, neither. What are the party where you represent, Judge?
the Belize Progressive Party.
All right, so we want BPP. Yeah. So all right, three P's. The People's
Correct.
Progressive Party. All right, triple P. We also want to make sure then that they're not from perspective of the PPP neither, right? So none of the P's. None of the P's.
Exactly.
All right,
Mr.
good.
Can I close on that same point, Mr. Chairman? Certainly, we enjoy the globe trotting tonight. But I do believe that it has become urgent that we try to come to the understanding of how we wanted to be governed when we set out in 1981, so that we can now better begin to evaluate how we are being governed against that. And I think with that, we can better advance the cause.
Thank you very much. Gregory, all is well?
All is well. Thank you very much. And everyone have a pleasant good evening.
Gentlemen, thank you. CY, take it away. CY. You see why? You're asleep. Gotcha. Respect everybody. Come on. All right.
When one door is closed, many more is open. To the right, one Jaja subway, Rasta no need no token. One door is closed, many more. And it's that Jaja with the love, with heart will never be broken. One door is closed, many more is open. To the right, one Jaja subway, Rasta no need no token. One door is closed, many more. And it's that Jaja with the love, me one brother try to stab me in a box. My girlfriend left me true, me never have no dollars in a stock. Best friend about the claim, they dread, they smoke. How the lyrics, where will they drop the walk? Big game hunters, them they set them trap. But when they pray to the Father non-stop, help me keep the heathens back. Help me keep the heathens back. When one door is closed, many more is open. To the right, Panjaja subway, Rasta no need no token. One door is closed, many more. And it's that Jaja with the love, with heart will never be broken. One door is closed, many more is open. To the right, Panjaja subway, Rasta no need no token. One door is closed, many more. And it's that Jaja with the love, we run up into enough obstacles. Surprisingly, from we own people. Them just hate to see the dread. We say pinnacle, them a hope and pray. Say we stumble, but we burning both ends of the scandal. Daily routine with the Bible. Despite the effort of the devil, we have to reach Jaja's steeple. When one door is closed, many more is open. To the right, Panjaja subway, Rasta no need no token. One door is closed, many more. And it's that Jaja with the love, with heart will never be broken. One door is closed, many more is open. To the right, Panjaja subway, Rasta no need no token. One door is closed, many more. And it's that Jaja with the love. Me one brother try to stab me in a me box. My girlfriend left me true, me never have no dollars in a stock. Best friend about the claim, they dread, they smoke. How the lyrics, where will they drop the one? You no see nothing yet, you no hear nothing yet, you no know nothing yet. You better not say nothing yet. You want to know how someone not dead yet? Eradicate all threats. Oh. Living in a Bobby wrong, and nothing nice. Life no have no value, but death's got a price. What all? 2 foot mice, because planting no they eat like rice. Living in a Bobby wrong, and nothing nice. Life no have no value, but death's got a price. What's all 2-foot mice? Planting no they eat like rice. Surviving to me, it's my crown and achievement. Now my main objective is just to stay on the pavement. I see cats go from showity to obscurity. Self-inflicted mental enslavement. All I ever needed was just a little taste. No, I'm after the paper like Gregory at Chase. The industry is trying to welcome me back like Mace. All bad boys, don't watch your face. I'm getting into cats' pockets before they go get in mine. I spit 82 bars before the replay could bust a rhyme. And the moms of shine is like a moms of mine. Big ups for all my cats on the grind. Rapping ain't easy, but I've done put in my bid. It's like the devil's playground, you can't be scared or timid. One life I've got, many lives I'll give. Cold talk, you know, we keep it frigid. BX 168 Gerard, but I treat the Big Apple like yard. We could do this my way, we could do this hard. Back off slowly or start talking to God. If it ain't assets or plastics, you ain't got no money. If it ain't high grade, you're not rolling the bunny. If it ain't meta, it ain't sweet like honey. All thanks to Jah, even my nights is sunny. You could have $1 in a dream, but you've got to be asleep. You could be the president, you just got to pick the right seat. You can't be friends with everyone you meet. Ain't nothing nice in the NYC street. But if the devil offered you water, would you die of thirst? If you've seen an old lady, would you snatch her purse? Would you mind being second if you couldn't be first? Would you mind clapping guns as I rate this verse? And I do what I do like I'm doing it for a feature. You be the creature, reverse your polarity, go against your nature. See how many of these niggas is really gonna hate you. Living in a Bobby wrong, I don't know nothing nice. Life no have.
Yes, well, with the routine, regular routine, everything to the supreme. Know what me mean?
I jumps in the whip with the dro. Head to the spot, head in the doors. Shaking my hizzy for some head and moles. End of the night, it's just all for show. This is not true, it be all for real. Dogs on the block and they out for kill. This is how it is, this is how it'll be. If it's not top notch, then it's not for me.
Me da song dog, booming song feel car, song dog. Me beg you, easy star, song dog. You know me crisp and clear, me no want no fuss, no fight, me no need no tribal war. Song dog, booming song feel car, song dog. Me beg you, easy star, song dog. You know me crisp and clear, me no want no fuss, no fight, me no need no tribal war. Some man think them rough, and I'm much rougher. Some man think them tough, me much tougher. Some man think them tall, yet me taller. Me the whole my corner like a weed farmer. The firm, get up early, we don't look. No worm, with the smoke, no coke, with the sip, no dope, with the smoke, no germ. Strictly the chronic, in a leaf, he burn. So to whom it's me concern, ashes to ashes inside of a earth. Don't forget it, you'll never ever learn. Me the whole my corner, me my girl named Lover. Did you hear that? Who the casket fit? Them better just wear rich body bag and bang. We know where the bodies are buried, you know we make them build the pit again. Who the casket fit? Them better just wear rich body bag and bang. We know where the bodies are buried, we make them build the pit. Yo, song dog, booming song for your car. Yes, me beg you, easy star. All the while, crisp and clear. Me no want no fuss, no fight, me no need no tribal war. Song dog, booming song for your car. Song dog, me beg.
Easy squeeze, make no riot. So they make noise easy. See why alongside Wavy and my boy, YT. Me no need no gimme, for to make the lyrics popular. Me no need no fire pan, no stick, make it ball like a wind. Gonna jump up in the air, song by beware. We fling ball lyrics like fear. Me no need no gimme, for to make the lyrics popular. Me no need no fire pan, no stick, make it ball like a wind. Gonna jump up in the air, song by beware. We fling ball lyrics like fear. Music down noise, gun and toys. Some boy me telling us you no must realize. Me like them words out of my mouth, these streams. Some your lyrics that I forget, rearrange. You don't need money get down. Hotter than pepper when you sing. Why you have to this song so bitter? You get opportunity. Sung by Beware with a fling bout lyrics like fear. Me no need no gimmick for the mix it republic. Me no need no fire pan, no stick, making it burn like a way. Now jump up in the air. Sung by Beware with a fling bout lyrics like fear. Violence prevention, that with a mention. Why you have to spit with so much bad intention? So I must say it, social GP. What's the seed far close to the G? You know, say retire that the negativity, plus you stay the complete. Even though you have dollars, they fall like rain. Still want drive in another man lane. You don't need no gimmick for to make the lyrics popular. You don't need no fire pan, no stick, make it burn like a wick. Now jump up in the air, sung by Beware with a fling bout lyrics like fear. You don't need no gimmick for to make the lyrics popular. You don't need no fire pan, no stick, make it burn like a wick. Now jump up in the air, sung by Beware with a fling bout lyrics like fear. Apex predator, so treat me like a barracuda from outer Belize water, or like a polar bear from outer Alaska. If I'm a snake, then call me a black mamba. Apex predator, so treat me like a barracuda from outer Belize water, or like a polar bear from outer Alaska. If I'm a snake, black mamba. Right now we sit down on top of the food chain, over vast territory, and I'm on the rain. Serengeti, one of my domain. If you don't find no bones, then we take the blame. Concrete jungle, rugged terrain. Look at the color and the size of my mane. We no play close, much less play games. We not do this for likes nor fame. I've had the disposition of a bald eagle. Miles above earth we don't set the table. Spook your herd, watching you scramble. Pick off the weak and the vulnerable. Don't win in our tight circle and knock off the one name. Remittate in a trouble. On the double, because you're gullible. You cry for help, won't get muffled. Yo, we strike fear in the heart of beasts and men when we hold. What's if you the buzz at the wrist? You the move foul. Lone wolf when with the scout, or with the pack when with the prowl. Check the size of my insiders when I growl. Relentless pursuit, separate you from your crowd. Even you have to run up on the curb. King, no monster we deserve. Track you through your third. Yo, 0 to 60 in 30, some of the bucking 45. Fittest survive. Ear spin back, pre-visualize your demise while protecting my pride. Sole purpose is to provide, lot easier with my lioness by my side. Natural selecting, speed of a peregrine. Radar can't detect my timing. Radar can't detect my timing. Apex predator, so treat me like a barracuda from outer Belize water, or like a polar bear from outer Alaska. If I'm a snake, then call me a black mamba. Apex predator, so treat me like a barracuda from outer Belize water, or like a polar bear from outer Alaska. If I'm a snake, then call me a black mamba.